channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a sizing guideline for hexagon cardigans, as well as how to add length to the sleeves and add sleeve cuffs and a border. This is not a full tutorial for a cardigan. I do have a full tutorial on my channel and it will be linked in the description. So this video is only for people who already understand how to make a hexagon cardigan and just want to know about sizing. This works for both granny hexagon cardigans and solid hexagon cardigans, like what I have here. On my Etsy shop, I've sold over 100 cardigans, so I have perfected this sizing over the years to be accurate for all of my buyers. And I will also talk about petite and tall sizing at the end. To start, I want to make it known that this is for weight for yarn and a hook that is in between a 5.25 and a 5.75. So I was using a 5.5 for this project. It's alright to use bigger hooks for cardigans because it will create a more loose style, and it's alright to have a little bit of looser stitches or gapping in between the stitches because of course cardigans go over other clothes, so it's alright for it to have some gaping. So let's get into the sizing. We're going to count our rows by the little holes that the corners create. So we go diagonally. There's going to be like a little hole right in the middle from where you started, of course, when you made either a magic ring or you chained to make a circle. So we don't count that hole, just the holes that the corners create. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows. An extra small will start at 15 rows, and then every size up will have another row. So a small is 16 rows, a medium is 17 rows, a large is 18 rows, an extra large, which is what I'm making today, is 19 rows, a 2X is 20 rows, a 3X is 21 rows, and so on. Once we get the right amount of rows for our size, we are going to end the last row by cutting off the yarn like I've done here so far. And I will meet you there to add the sleeve length. Once you've gotten to the row number for your size, cut off the yarn, and we are going to add additional length to the sleeve right here. So we will just be adding rows back and forth on just this line of stitches. The goal is to have 22 rows in total after whatever number of rows you've done. So for my extra large, I did 19 rows, and I will be adding 3 more. But the last row, no matter how many you're adding, will skip every other stitch. So I'll show that when I get to the 22nd row. Just to note before I start the rows, this is for a pretty average heighted person. I'm only 4'10", so it's actually long on me. So if I were making it for me or for any petite person, I would actually aim for only 20 rows. And if you've done a size that already require 20 or more rows, then you can simply add 1 more row of just single crochet, skipping every other stitch. The single crochet won't add much length, but we need the skipping of the stitches to kind of draw the sleeve in and make it skinnier at the wrist. And you can also make the cuff shorter when we get to the cuff part. If you are tall and have long arms, I'd aim for about 24 or 25 total rows and plus the cuff. Length can always be added even after sewing, so after we sew the cardigan together, it's possible to try it on to see if more length may be needed, either by adding regular rows like what we're doing right now right here, or adding some more length to the ribbed cuff that we will make. So to add that length, I am just going to attach yarn on either side. It's important to do it on the row where we ended because this is going to be the perfect place to fold the cardigan, because I know with hexagon cardigans sometimes you kind of fold it at the wrong corner and then it doesn't become the shape you need it to be, but it will always be the right shape if you're folding it at the point where you started and ended, where you're going to have a tail. So it just makes sense to make this our sleeve and cuff point anyway. So attach the yarn to either side and just double crochet all the way across in every stitch. I've just finished one extra row, so I'm gonna turn my work and add another row, cut off the yarn because I'm making stripes of one row, but obviously if you're not making stripes, you could just keep going. I am now going into my third additional row, but it's my 22nd row in total, so everyone should be on the 22nd row right now. If you made a 4x or above, then this will just be a single crochet row for you since you already have 22 or more rows. But for everyone else, it is an additional double crochet row. We are just skipping every other stitch. So I've chained 3 and I'm going to skip this stitch. Let me zoom in for you. I'm going to skip this stitch next to my chain 3 and go right into the third stitch from the beginning of the row. And then I'm going to skip the one next to that and go right into this one. Skip the one next to that and go right into this one. Just do that until the end of the row, and skipping every other stitch is just going to make it a little bit tighter so that it starts to create a real kind of sleeve shape rather than being super wide at the wrist. And of course with hexagon cardigans we are going to be making 2, folding them in half and sewing them together. So if this is your first panel or half, then you can cut off the yarn after your 22nd row. But if it is your second half, then leave the yarn on because we're actually just going to continue using it to sew the 2 tops of the cardigan halves together. So we're now going to fold this in half and let the 2 ends meet and fold the whole thing so that it makes the correct cardigan shape. And we're gonna slip stitch along the side and then across the top of the whole cardigan to just sew everything together and sew it to the other half. So just slip stitching in random parts at first when we're working on the side, but then when we get over here to the part where we didn't add sleeve length, then we will just be slip stitching into regular double crochet stitches, so that'll be easier. Once you have slip stitch all the way to the end of this half, then you can put the other half right next to it and just keep slip stitching along, connecting the 2 halves and then sewing, the top half of the other half closed. Keep slip stitching until you get to the end of the other sleeve, and then I'm gonna go straight into the cuff, but it depends on what color yarn you're using and if you want to use the same color yarn that we're already using right now. Otherwise we can go straight to sewing up the back before doing the cuffs. It depends on your color preferences. I'm at the end of my row now. So if you are using the yarn color that's on your hook to be the same color sleeve cuff that you want, then we can go right into doing the sleeve cuff for just this sleeve. There's really no need to cut off yarn and reattach it and weave in more ends, so we can go straight into it. But if you're doing a different color and you are going to cut off yarn and reattach, then you can either keep following along to do the sleeve cuff right now, or you can sew the back up just to have that done, sew the back of the cardigan, and then come back to the sleeve cuff. It's up to you, but I'm going to put timestamps in the video so that you can go to whatever part you want to be doing. So to start off the ribbed sleeve cuff, we are going to chain 11. And we are going to single crochet down that chain 10 times. And now we are going to slip stitch into the next 3 stitches. Doing 3 is going to give us an even more cinched cuff, basically making it tighter around the wrist so that it is pretty normal sleeve size. So then after slip stitching into 3, we turn it around so we can work back up the back end. And we are just going to single crochet up it in the back loop only, but I count 10 from the top so that I know I'm stitching into the right stitches into the single crochets instead of accidentally going into the slip stitches that we just did. So I do this on every row just to make sure I'm still doing it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we are going to do back loop only to create the ribbing all the way back up. So 10 more stitches, and then chain 1, turn the work, and do that again all the way down, slip stitch, and back up. So at the end of the row, chain 1, turn just this tiny row, and single crochet back loop only back down the row 10 times again, and do the same thing. Slip stitch into the next 3. This is the one that we're already in right now, even though it's hard to tell because we're really pulling the work to the right side. We are in this hole, so not counting that one. We're going into the next one after that, and the next one after that. Turn the work. Do the counting from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And single crochet back loop only back up. We're going to do this all the way around until we get back to where we started, and then we will slip stitch it all together. I've gotten to the end of my last row now that I'm back next to this place where we started. There's only 2 spots left to slip stitch into, so if that happens to you, it's fine to do 2 or 4 instead of 3. And then you can just slip stitch back up. You can always do another row up and then slip stitch down if you want to. It doesn't matter. You should have about 24 to 26 rows. Anything above 20 is good. And of course, if you're using acrylic yarn, acrylic stretches a lot. At the end, we're gonna just chain 1 and cut off the yarn and weave in that end. And for the other sleeve cuff, then we will just attach the yarn to the other sleeve and do the same thing over again. And now I'm gonna sew down the back to connect the two halves together on the back. And when we're done sewing it all together, we're gonna turn it inside out so that the seams are on the inside, of course. And the last thing we have to do is crochet a border around the front, and then I use the same color and the same yarn to continue along the bottom to provide added length as well. So if you didn't want to add length or even a border, then you would be finished with your cardigan. But if you're someone who wants to know how to add length, I always start with the border and go straight into it. So I start the border at the bottom corner and I go up and around and then back down till I get to the other corner. And then we just start crocheting along the bottom. So I'm going to attach yarn to the bottom right hand corner, right hand being while I'm looking at it, but will end up being the left side of the cardigan really. And I'm only going to do single crochet for the border because you don't really need a huge border, and it makes it look slightly different than the rest of the cardigan if you're doing a different color than what you ended off with. So just doing single crochet all the way down. If you did a granny cardigan and therefore have gaps that you're kind of jumping over, you can either just keep going. You can also do a chain in between the gaps, but even if you don't do that, it's not really going to make a huge difference. So you can just single crochet in the cluster of 3, and then just keep single crocheting in the next cluster of 3 without really doing anything about the gaps. But if you want to, you can chain 1. I'm now at the bottom corner, so I'm gonna chain 3 so that I can just go straight into this first double crochet stitch on the bottom. And I'm just gonna double crochet all the way across. Of course, you can also choose to do ribbing both for the border and the bottom. I just do this just to be faster, and I like the look of having just the ribbing on the sleeve cuffs. And then this is where you can completely customize the length. So we're just gonna crochet back and forth across the bottom, so it can be any amount of rows that you want. I probably am only gonna do 1 for this cardigan, but I've done up to like 8 before. You could go even longer. You can make it floor length if you want, if you just keep crocheting. And now that I'm at the end of the row and back at the place where I started, I'm just gonna double crochet into that so it looks all even. And then if I were going to keep going and adding more rows, then I would chain and turn my work and then double crochet back down the other way. But since I only wanted 1 row, I am just gonna cut off the yarn. I'm gonna weave it in and I'll be done. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you have any questions, you can comment them below, or I always link my crochet Instagram account in the description, so if you want to ask me a question privately and not in the comment section, then you can always message me on that Instagram account and I will always answer. If there's any other tutorials that you would like to see, let me know in the comments, or anything else like this where it is more of guidelines than a tutorial for advanced crocheters rather than beginner tutorial, which is what I usually do. So this was my first time doing something like this. If you want anything like that again in the future, please let me know in the comments. And if you follow this tutorial or guideline and post pictures on Instagram, please tag my crochet Instagram or send it to me, just because I love to see all the colors everyone does. Thanks for watching.